Daf Yomi, Tractate Bava Metzia, page 66b, part 2, with the words, and Rav Papa said, the Amr of Papa. Even though the sages said that Nismachta does not affect acquisition, and therefore even if he stipulated that the lender can collect the debt by seizing land, the lender does not acquire the land. Nevertheless, the land is considered to be set aside as designated repayment for the lender to collect repayment from it up to the amount of the money owed. Rav Huna, son of Rav Natan, said to Rav Papa, did the borrower say to the lender, acquire it for the sake of debt collection? Since the borrower did not specify that transferring ownership of the field was in place of the payment of the debt, his statement is considered an asmachta, and the field is not set aside as designated repayment. Mar Zutra, son of Rav Mari, said to Ravina, and if he had said to him, acquire it for the sake of debt collection, would the lender then acquire it? Ultimately, it is an asmachta, and the halacha is that an asmachta does not affect acquisition. The Gemara poses a question, but in that case, what is the designated repayment spoken of by Rav Papa? According to Mar Zutra's analysis, it makes no difference whether or not he said it was set aside as a designated repayment of the loan. The Gemara explains Rav Papa is referring to a case, for example, where the borrower said to the lender, not only will I give you the land if I fail to repay the loan, but even if I do pay, you will receive the payment only from this land alone, as I will pay off my debt to you by giving you land from this field. In that case, the asmachta is negated while the promise of repayment from the land remains intact. The Gemara relays, there was a certain man who sold land to another with a property guarantee, meaning that in the event the land is seized by the seller's creditors, the seller will reimburse the buyer the purchase money. The buyer said to him, if your creditors seize the land from me, will you allow me to collect that which is owed to me from the most superior quality of the superior quality land that you have? The seller said to him, I will not allow you to collect from the most superior quality of my superior quality land, as I want to keep those before me. But I will allow you to collect from other superior quality land that I have. Ultimately, creditors seized the field from the buyer, and in the meantime a flood came and flooded the seller's most superior quality of his superior quality land. As his remaining superior quality land was now the best he had, the seller was unwilling to give them to the buyer and sought to repay him with intermediate quality land in accordance with the standard halacha concerning reimbursement to a buyer. Rav Papa thought to say, since the seller said to the buyer that he could collect from his superior quality land, and this superior quality land is intact, the seller must give it to him in accordance with his promise. Rav Achav Divti said to Ravina, but let the seller say to the buyer, when I said to you that I would allow you to collect from my superior quality land, that was when the most superior quality of my superior quality was intact. But now my superior quality land stands for me in a place of the most superior quality of the superior quality land that I had before, and I am not obligated to give you the very best of my property. The Gemara relates that Rav Bar Shaba owed money to Rav Kahana. Rav Bar Shaba said to him, if I do not repay you by such and such a date, you can collect the debt from this wine. Rav Papa thought to say, when we said that an asmachta does not affect acquisition, this matter applies only to land which does not stand to be sold. In other words, which is not typically bought and sold on the market, and therefore the promise is invalid, as he did not regularly intend to give it to him. But in the case of wine, since it does stand to be sold, it is considered like money, and therefore he can claim the debt from wine, as he can claim the debt from any other item which has monetary worth. Rav Huna, son of Rav Yehoshua, says Rav Papa, this is what we say in the name of Rabbah. Any statement, including a condition introduced with the word if, does not affect acquisition. Any agreement that does not involve a definitive commitment but does obligate one in the event of a particular outcome has the status of an asmachta and does not affect acquisition, as the one setting the condition did not really intend to fulfill the commitment. Rav Nachman said, now that the sages have said that an asmachta does not affect acquisition in a case such as in the Mishnah, when one promised another land for the repayment of a debt, if the lender in fact took it, the land must be returned, and the value of any produce the creditor consumed from his land must also be returned. The Gemara poses a question: is this to say that Rav Nachman maintains that mistaken forgiveness of payment is not valid forgiveness, meaning that if one forgoes repayment of a loan of a certain amount of money in error, he can change his mind? In this case, the borrower had thought that the lender had acquired the land, and he therefore allowed him to consume the produce. But it was stated that Amoraim disputed this very issue. If one sells the fruit of a palm tree to another before the fruit ripens, Rav Huna says he can retract and cancel the sale until the fruits have come into the world, as the fruit is not yet in existence. But once they have come into the world, even if they are still unripe, he cannot retract, as once the fruits that are being acquired exist, the sale has gone into effect. And Rav Nachman says he can retract even once they have come into the world, as one cannot transfer ownership of an entity that has not yet come into the world, and the actual transaction was performed before the fruits existed. And Rav Nachman said, I concede that if the buyer sees the fruit and consumed it, we do not take its value from him. The reason is that since the seller initially accepted the transaction, although it involved a legal error, it can be assumed that he decided to waive his rights to the fruit and allowed the other to take it. Consequently, it can be demonstrated that Rav Nachman holds that mistaken forgiveness is forgiveness. The Gemara rejects this proof there. The discussion involves a sale with regard to which it can be said that the seller waived his rights to the fruit. Here it is referring to a loan and not requiring the lender to reimburse the borrower for the produce consumed is considered a form of interest. Amar Rava said,